Burbot anglers are a different kind of folk.
So whatever time of year it is, I love tinkering with baits.
Fishing is more than just the act of catching fish on the ice. It's the anticipation of going on a trip. It's tinkering around in your shop trying to make a mousetrap better than it is.
It's been asked where I find my parts. Most of the time I'm stealing them off other lures.
I think it's helping me catch more fish.
And we notoriously like to tweak our baits, modify them to make them as noisy, gaudy, flashy, and rattly as we can. A few of the things that I like to do, and I'm not the only one, but adding things like glass rattles. Some people will add scent pads or a synthetic fiber, so when you're spraying a crayfish or smelt scent on there, it holds that scent down there in flavor. Glow paints, glow sticks, anything that you can think of, I guarantee a burbot angler has tried to do. There's just something special about that, sitting at home, sprawling your baits out on a workbench and modifying them, especially if you don't have the opportunity to get on the ice that night. Now, I'm not the only one that likes to mod baits and try to get that advantage over the other guy. Here's a few other tweaks that my buddies like to do.
One thing that I've done to customize this bait, and it's a really easy add-on, is just the addition of sound. So I've taken a simple rattle, like you'd see on a bass jig, and just put that around the collar of this. So then every time I pound this or just twitch it a little bit, I've got that auditory cue for those fish to come and find the bait, because, you know, again, those eelpout, burbot, they have really poor eyesight. So sound and, of course, the glow is a huge, huge thing.
So whatever time of year it is, I love tinkering with baits, tying up smallie jigs on the vise or tying up treble hooks for pout spoons. Tons of modifications you guys can make to these, and some of my favorite are tying up some trebles, maybe adding some glow beads right on the treble hook. And what I've been doing recently is putting one of these VMC hybrid treble, bladed trebles on here. And when you pack it full of minnows, it can kind of get in the way, but put some smaller minnow heads on there. It still has a little bit of flash and shine down there, just something different. Of course, putting rattles on different jigs and spoons. And one of the things I feel is overlooked a lot is when the burbot become more of the daytime period, where you're fishing them when the sun's still out, like right now, is I'll switch it up to maybe like a brass or a nickel spoon, something that might catch a little bit more shine during the day. But when they're going, hopefully they all catch.
Things that I do is add rattle. I know some of the other guys have talked about adding noise, and it's important, especially when you're pounding bottom. Doing those little shakes, that rattle just really entices them. It's been asked where I find my parts. Most of the time I'm stealing them off other lures, other baits. I think I picked up a couple of these brass rattles from Northland Tackle. There was some jigs for sale that had this large rattle chamber on it. They were $1 a piece. I just took the rattle chambers off and left the jigs. If you're looking for little spinners or little flashers that some of these baits have, you can incorporate those into the swivel or even in the split ring on that pout pounder jig, and add a little flash, add a little noise. It's all gonna make that bait more attractive to that eel pout when they come in to eat.
Now for my pout lure modifications, I like to tie a lot of hair on my baits. So here I've got a big nasty pout pounder. This helps with the glow, and this hair also holds scent, which helps bring in the fish. So, you know, say one of your minnow heads happens to fall off, this will hopefully still be scented, and, you know, the fish might still bite it. And it just gives it a bigger profile. So I attach these just like you'd tie a fly on. You know, I just put the hair down, did a bunch of cinches, ready to go. And for the rattles, I actually just used crazy glue, glued them first together, and then I pressed them down. I put a rubber band around it and glued them together so it stays, and it's good to go. It's caught, I don't know, maybe a dozen pout already, and it hasn't fallen off, and I think it's helping me catch more fish.
When it comes to modifications for burbot lures, there's a ton of fun stuff, and of course fishing is more than just the act of catching fish on the ice. It's the anticipation of going on a trip. It's tinkering around in your shop trying to make a mousetrap better than it is. And here's a few of the things that I've done over the years. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. For me, it's a lot of fun to play around in the garage. The biggest tip I could give you especially when you're spoon fishing, using a heavy spoon for burbot, is changing the treble hook that you've got on it. So for me, the VMC hybrid treble is my favorite spoon hook. It's kind of got a bit of a rounded bend, and this is a 3/4 ounce crippled herring here. It's a glow-in-the-dark model. I actually dipped this one in a super fancy glow-in-the-dark paint, then I seal coated it. But I put a little feather trailer on the back here. This is glow-in-the-dark Flashaboo on the VMC hybrid treble right there, but that's a size 3. The size 3 does two things. One, it allows you to put good size bait, you know, a big fathead on each hook with the bait button on there holding it in place. And then secondly, it's a bigger hook, so it's got more purchase when you're dealing with a big, I mean, a 5-pound burbot's got a mouth like the size of a 3 or 4 pound largemouth bass. It's a big mouth, so having a tiny treble hook, it just seems like your odds go down. Here's another example. This is a sleek jig right here. Of course, I had to paint it, but I just put a little bit of Flashaboo on the back of that that's glow in the dark. And I don't know, you'll see it when you fish with a little bit of Flashaboo on the back of these jigs. It seems like it's holding minnow slime, minnow gut, so obviously it's carrying a little bit more scent than if it was just a straight jig head. But when they're biting, again, it really doesn't make that much difference. The other bait that I've caught a lot of burbot on over the years, I wouldn't say that this is a go-to, but it has produced a number of fish for me, and that's a rattle bait. One modification I've made with rattle baits is I'll drill a hole in the top and I'll add number 8 shot. So the same shot that would be in a shotgun shell, I'll add extra shot to that. So instead of this being, I forget what it is, maybe it's a 1/2 ounce or 5/8 ounce bait, I'll make this like 1 ounce and 1/8. So it goes down really fast. Hear that? It's still loud. And then of course I painted it glow in the dark. So that's been a really good bait for me as well. So my top 3 burbot baits would be number 1, a spoon. I really like fishing a heavy spoon. Number 2, a jig, especially as it gets later in the year and you're around more fish. I like a jig better. And then the third one would be a rattle bait. I've had good luck on that, but it's fun. I've messed with all kinds of stuff over the years. Overall, it's really a lot of just having fun in your garage and just thinking about different things. I'm assuming that just like anything in fishing, at some point in time, somebody's going to come up with a better mousetrap. And right now, we know that when the fish are biting, it doesn't take much, but of course, it's those little tweaks when the bite is tough where somebody all of a sudden shines and does way better can make the difference.